couple of you have tried to send persuasive information based upon a relic called the shroud. I want to reiterate the following. Coins were not placed upon the eyes of dead people. Shards were. Shards, pieces of pottery, were placed upon their eyes. You can check that out. The other thing is the position of the model in this shroud has the hands crossed over in a certain way, blocking out one's genitalia. I find this to be almost impossible. Any person that dies remains in the position at the point that he dies. The body, the limbs are frozen. It's almost impossible to move those limbs. It's called rigor mortis. To have the arms moving in that particular way and covering the genitalia in that particular way indicate a live model, not a dead model. That's the second part. It could not have been a picture of someone who was dead. And in that process, if indeed you have, let's say you have Adam, don't say you have God, but you have Adam, first man, why would he cover his genitalia? If he is Adam on the highest level, genitalia are just part of his anatomy. It appears incongruous that something that is supposed to be godly would have any sense of shame at all. There's no purpose of shame. To say that there was a deliberate action in order to make a picture and then covering the thing, it looks like a cadaver. If it's a cadaver wouldn't cover the genitalia. If it's alive, it would look alive. It would be totally different. This is very, very difficult for a healthy person to accept. Now, another factor that you have to also understand is that there was an image found on the back of the shroud, a faint image of the front, which essentially tells me just the opposite, that the shroud was first folded over in the front in order to create the negative, and that image actually penetrated to the other side that was folded over. And then the shroud was placed on the back of the model. And how it was placed probably was folded over at exactly the point of the where the head stopped. Now you always say, well, but it's a three-dimensional. I don't know what you can do with three dimensions. I don't know what the exact three-dimensional images that are created. I saw some of the representations of a three-dimensional image, and they weren't exactly like a human being. But clearly, there's a separation between the front and the back that would normally occur if you had a shroud that was on front and back, which is also, by the way, impossible. The reason why it's impossible is there was what is called a sudar, there was called a headpiece that would have wrapped the face and prevented the face from being shown. That would have been the first thing for the image to have gone into. The famous sudarium that exists somewhere in Spain doesn't have any of the image, and the shroud itself would have been wrapped around the body, not front and back. Anybody who knows anything about embalmment, the wrapping of the bodies, knows that the body would be completely covered. And the way in which to do this with a tablecloth would be to wrap it around the body. To say that it magically unraveled itself and wasn't front and back, then the headpiece would have had some kind of an image as well. The headpiece doesn't have an image, if that's indeed the headpiece, which is what they claim. Basically, God is not physical, and therefore God doesn't necessarily have to put an image. And if God wanted to put an image, the image would have been a complete image. It would have been a photograph. And if I was God, I would have signed it. The other thing is that you have all of these supposed death warrants or writs from the Roman authorities. This is laughable. Nobody put any kind of message onto the shrouds, onto any shrouds of a burial. Shrouds were basically from the family placed upon the individual. In this case, it would have been from the students who went and would have washed the body and then would have wrapped them in a shroud. To say that the Roman authorities would have given the shroud, which is a herringbone weave, which